From the moment we're old enough to speak, most of us are taught one golden rule: be nice. It's drilled into us by parents, teachers, books, and television shows. We're praised when we share our toys, when we speak politely, when we put others before ourselves. The word nice becomes synonymous with good, and we wear it like a badge of honor. As we grow older, that idea embeds itself more deeply into our sense of identity. To be liked, we must be agreeable. To be accepted, we must be accommodating. To be loved, we must be endlessly selfless. But behind this well-mannered mask lies a hidden tension that few ever talk about. Being nice, constantly, unconditionally, and without boundaries, comes with a cost. A quiet cost that we don't notice until it's far too late. We begin to feel the weight of unspoken resentment, the fatigue of unmet needs, the subtle ache of having molded ourselves into what others want, rather than who we truly are. We smile through situations that drain us. We nod through decisions that go against our instincts. We say yes when our entire being is screaming no. All because somewhere along the way, we came to believe that denying ourselves was the price we had to pay for love, for belonging, for peace. This belief doesn't develop overnight. It grows quietly over years of small compromises. Maybe it started when you were a child and were told not to argue, even when something felt unfair. Or maybe it began in school, when keeping the peace meant swallowing your opinions. Later, in friendships, in relationships, and in the workplace, the same dynamic played out again and again. You found yourself bending, accommodating, shrinking, all for the sake of being liked. And at first, it worked. People praised your helpfulness, your patience, your ability to keep things running smoothly. But underneath that approval, something else started brewing. A quiet discomfort, a sense that you were being seen, but not truly known. That you were being liked, but only for the version of yourself you were curating. You kept showing up, giving your time and energy away, all while your own needs sat quietly in the background, waiting their turn. But that turn never came. And then one day you felt it, the snap. That moment where the exhaustion caught up with you. Maybe it was a canceled plan you'd been looking forward to. Maybe it was another phone call from someone who only calls when they need something. Maybe it was simply the realization that you didn't remember the last time someone asked how you were doing, with no expectation attached. It's in that moment that the truth reveals itself. Being nice, when it becomes an obligation rather than a choice, is not an act of kindness. It's a habit of self-abandonment, a slow erosion of authenticity. And here's the hardest part to admit. It's not the world's fault. It's not the fault of the people who've taken advantage. It's the result of a pattern we created, we maintained, and we now have the power to change. But to change it, we have to face something uncomfortable. We have to confront the reason we became this way. At its root, the compulsive need to be nice isn't about goodness. It's about fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of conflict, fear that if we stop being endlessly agreeable, the people around us will leave. And maybe some will, but the people who truly value you, who love you for who you are and not for what you give, those people will stay. They will not only stay, they will respect you more. Because boundaries are not walls, they're doors. And when you learn to close some, you create space for the right ones to open. We are not here to be everyone's solution. We are not here to patch every hole in the world with our own skin. True kindness is not about erasing ourselves. It is about showing up as ourselves. It's about saying, I care, but I also matter. And that's where the shift begins. That's where real transformation starts to take root, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. It's not about becoming less kind. It's about becoming more honest, more whole, more you. Because the most dangerous part of being too nice isn't what others take from you. It's what you begin to believe about yourself. That your worth is tied to your usefulness, that your voice is secondary, that your needs are a burden, but none of that is true. Your worth is inherent, your voice is necessary, and your needs, your rest, your joy, your truth are sacred. You don't need to apologize for wanting space. You don't need to feel guilty for saying no. You don't need to be available to everyone at all times just to be seen as a good person. Being good doesn't mean being drained. Being kind doesn't mean being exploited. Because the world doesn't need more people who are nice at the expense of themselves. The world needs more people who are whole, who show up fully, who lead with both compassion and clarity. That's what it means to reclaim your life. That's what it means to walk through this world not as a mask but as a soul, unfiltered, unapologetic, unshakably you. And when you make that shift, when you start valuing your own time, energy, and voice as much as you value everyone else's, something powerful happens. You stop feeling resentful. You stop feeling invisible. You start to feel alive, aligned, awake, because now you're not just performing kindness, you're living it. Not for approval, not for applause, but because it comes from a place that is rooted, centered, and real. And the kindness that comes from that place, that's the kind of kindness that transforms lives, including your own. There comes a point in every journey where you start to notice the weight you're carrying. Not the physical kind, but the emotional kind. The weight of always being available, always showing up, always saying yes, even when your body says no and your heart pleads for rest. It's subtle at first. You tell yourself you're being nice, and people thank you for it. They smile, they nod, they lean on you, and maybe for a while that feels good. There's a kind of warmth in being needed. There's comfort in knowing you've made someone's day easier. But then, gradually, the warmth fades, and all you're left with is the heaviness. Because when you constantly show up for everyone else and forget to show up for yourself, something inside begins to dim. You might not notice it right away, but your laughter doesn't come as easily. Your thoughts are cloudier. You start canceling on yourself, your goals, your passions, your peace. And this is where the trap tightens. It's not that kindness is the problem. It's the expectation that it must be endless, without return, without pause. Somewhere along the way, people stopped asking you if you needed anything, and you stopped offering that question to yourself. Instead, you began living in reaction mode, responding to everyone else's needs, emergencies, plans, and demands, until eventually the very core of your being gets pushed so far into the background that you can barely hear it whisper anymore. You wonder why you're so tired all the time, why life feels so blurry and disconnected, why even the smallest requests make you feel like you're about to collapse. But deep down, you already know why. It's because you've given away every part of yourself in the name of being nice. But here's a truth most of us were never taught. Kindness without boundaries is not kindness. It's self-neglect dressed up in politeness. It's fear hidden behind a smile. It's the slow erosion of your own identity for the comfort of everyone else. And while the world may applaud your selflessness, your spirit quietly aches for permission to stop. Not to stop loving others, but to start loving yourself. To draw a line between generosity and depletion. To know when your yes is authentic and when it's really a silent cry for help. That's why boundaries matter. They're not about pushing people away. They're about inviting yourself in. They're a declaration that you matter too. That your time, your energy, your emotions, your body, and your mind deserve respect, care, and space. Boundaries say, I will help you, but not at the cost of myself. They remind the world and yourself that your worth isn't measured by how much you give, but by how true you are to your own needs. And yet, setting them isn't easy, especially if you've spent your life being praised for how agreeable, helpful, and accommodating you are. The first time you say no, it might shake you. Your voice might tremble. Guilt may creep in like a storm. And people, especially those who have grown comfortable with your constant yes, may push back. But the discomfort of setting boundaries is temporary. The damage of never setting them, that's what lingers. That's what corrodes the soul. Think about how often you've stayed silent when you wanted to speak. How many times you've gone something just to avoid tension. How many versions of yourself you've tucked away, hoping no one would notice how uncomfortable you really were. All of that adds up. It's no wonder you feel tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but soul tired. And the only remedy for that kind of fatigue is truth. Your honest, unfiltered needs, spoken out loud and followed with action. But let's get even more real. Setting boundaries doesn't mean turning cold. It doesn't mean shutting people out. It means being intentional. It means asking yourself, is this request aligned with my energy right now? Does this decision honor me as well as the other person? Am I choosing this from a place of love or from a place of fear? Because people will always ask more of you. That's human nature. But you don't have to keep handing over parts of yourself just to keep the peace. Peace that costs your authenticity isn't peace, it's a prison. Start small. Choose one moment today to honor yourself. One conversation where you speak up. One request where you pause and check in before saying yes. One breath where you remind yourself, I matter too. That's how self-respect is built. Not in massive declarations, but in small, consistent acts of alignment. And yes, some people might not like the new version of you, the one with boundaries, with clarity, with self-worth. But the right people will. The right people won't just tolerate your no, they'll respect it. They'll admire you not just for what you give, but for how you stand in your truth. And in doing that, you give them permission to do the same. This is what real kindness looks like. It's not just about warm smiles and soft words. It's about courage. It's about saying, I love you, but I love me too. It's about learning to be whole, not just helpful. And when you operate from that place, when your kindness is rooted in self-respect, it becomes something unshakable. It doesn't drain you, it fuels you. It radiates from a place so genuine that others can feel it, even before you speak. That's the kind of energy that shifts rooms. The truth is, most of us didn't learn how to say no, we learned how to survive by saying yes. We were praised when we gave up our seat, smiled when we were uncomfortable, agreed when we wanted to scream. And over time, that became the pattern, the muscle memory, the automatic response to the world. You became the dependable one, the reliable one, the one who's always there. But the price was you, your time, your rest, your joy. Somewhere along the way, you started asking permission to exist on your own terms. And every time you put yourself second, it reinforced the belief that your needs didn't matter. But here's the hard truth. It's not the world doing that to you anymore. It's you. You're the one who has to break the cycle now. You're the one who has to decide that you're no longer going to abandon yourself to earn belonging. And that starts with learning how to say no, clearly, calmly, and without guilt. Because no isn't just a word, it's a boundary, it's a full sentence. It's a compass that points you back to your own center. But most of us aren't used to using it. We stumble, we justify, we over-explain, we try to soften the blow. And that's okay. It takes time to unlearn a lifetime of people-pleasing. But just because it feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Discomfort isn't a sign you're being selfish. It's a sign you're growing. Think about how many times you've said yes and regretted it. How many hours you've given away to things that drained you, to people who didn't see you, to obligations that didn't serve you. That regret, that heaviness, it's your soul telling you the truth. It's your intuition raising its hand and asking, what about me? And it's time you listen. But learning to say no isn't just about protecting your time. It's about reclaiming your power. Because every time you say yes to something that doesn't align, you say no to something that does. Every time you say yes out of guilt, you reinforce the idea that other people's comfort matters more than your peace. And that's not the life you were meant to live. So what does a powerful no sound like? It's quiet, steady, grounded. It sounds like, thank you, but I won't be able to commit to that. It sounds like, I appreciate the offer, but I need to prioritize my own time right now. It sounds like, no, not this time. You don't owe anyone a novel. You don't have to defend your right to rest, to choose, to pause. You simply have to trust that your worth isn't tied to your availability. And yes, people may be surprised when you start saying no. They might feel confused or even disappointed, especially if they've grown used to your constant yes. But that's not a sign to retreat. That's a sign to stay the course, because their discomfort is not your responsibility. You're not being unkind, you're being honest, and honesty is the foundation of any real relationship. If someone walks away because you said no, they were never really there for you. They were there for what you could give them. And that's a painful truth, but a liberating one. Because when you start saying no, you create room for the yeses that actually matter. You make space for rest, for creativity, for relationships that nourish you instead of deplete you. You begin to align your actions with your values, your time with your truth. And slowly, you remember what it feels like to choose yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in a selfish way. In a way that says, I honor who I am. I respect my limits. I trust my intuition. That's what it means to live unapologetically. To stop dimming your light so others can shine. To stop editing yourself so others don't feel uncomfortable. To stop performing niceness and start embodying authenticity. And that's a process. It takes courage. It takes practice. It takes patience. But every time you choose to show up as your real self, messy, honest, whole, you take a step closer to freedom. You stop living for applause and start living in alignment. You stop chasing validation and start cultivating self-trust. And the more you do that, the more your life begins to reflect it. You'll notice it in your relationships. The ones who truly love you will rise to meet the real you. They'll respect your no. They'll celebrate your growth. They'll see your boundaries not as walls, but as doorways into deeper connection. Because real connection can only happen when both people feel free to be who they are. Without fear, without guilt, without the need to perform. You'll notice it in your energy. When you stop pouring yourself into places that don't fill you back up, you'll have more to give where it matters most. You'll be less reactive, more grounded. You'll feel more present in your own life instead of constantly rushing to meet everyone else's expectations. And you'll notice it in your inner world. That quiet place inside you, the one that's been aching to be heard, will finally start to speak again. You'll hear your own thoughts more clearly. You'll feel more connected to your purpose. You'll remember what you love, what excites you, what makes you feel alive. Because for the first time in a long time, you'll have made room for it. Room for you. So let this be your permission slip. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't have to apologize for taking up space. Your needs are not a burden. Your desires are not selfish. Your truth is not too much. It is time, right now, not later, to stop waiting for others to value you and start showing yourself the value you've had all along. Say no. Stand tall. Speak your truth. Choose yourself. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to live fully awake, fully alive, and fully free. And here's where the deeper shift begins, not just in how you speak to others, but in how you speak to yourself. Because the greatest boundary you'll ever learn to set is the one between your true self and the inner voice that tells you to shrink. The one that whispers you're too much or not enough. The one that insists you should just keep being nice, keep giving in, keep the peace no matter the cost. That voice has been with you for a long time. Maybe it sounds like a parent or a teacher or the version of yourself that survived hard times by staying small. But it's not the voice of your highest self. Your highest self knows your worth isn't determined by how convenient you are to others. It knows that your value isn't found in your sacrifice, but in your presence, your truth, your integrity. So let's talk about what happens when you finally silence that old voice. When you start to live in alignment with your boundaries, your values, and your authenticity, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself, really trust yourself. Not just to make the right choices, but to feel what's right. Right in your bones and act on it without second guessing. And that's a rare kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't need permission because it's rooted in clarity. You know who you are, you know what matters to you, and you're no longer willing to abandon yourself just to be accepted. This is what authenticity looks like. Not a perfect, polished version of you, but a real one. The version of you who honors your yes and your no with equal honesty. The version of you who sets boundaries, not to push people away, but to invite in relationships that are based on mutual respect. The version of you who no longer seeks validation like oxygen, but instead breathes freely in the space you've created for your truth. And yes, some people may fall away when you step into that truth. Let them. That's not a loss. That's life clearing the path for the people who are meant to meet you at your fullest expression, not your most convenient version. Because when you stop being nice in the performative approval-seeking way, and start being kind in the truest sense. Kind to yourself, kind to others, without betraying yourself. You change the energy of every space you enter. People notice, they feel it. There's a quiet power in someone who's at peace with themselves. It's not loud, it's not arrogant, it's steady, grounded, unshakable. And that's the kind of power you were born with, long before anyone taught you to suppress it. But let's also acknowledge the real work it takes to get there. Unlearning people-pleasing is not an overnight transformation. It's a process, a re-education of the soul. It means asking hard questions. Why do I feel the need to be liked? Where did I learn that my worth depends on being agreeable? What am I so afraid will happen if I say no? And those answers, when they come, might shake you. Because they'll take you back to the moments you started to shrink, to silence yourself, to abandon your own needs in exchange for safety, approval, love. But that's okay. We all begin there. The important thing is not to get stuck there. Because here's the most liberating truth of all. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to outgrow the patterns that once kept you safe. You're allowed to evolve beyond the version of yourself that everyone expects. You're allowed to say, I used to say yes to everything. I don't anymore. And you don't need to explain that to anyone. Growth doesn't come with a permission slip. It just comes with commitment. The willingness to show up for yourself over and over again, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it disrupts the old dynamics. And one of the most powerful disruptions you can create is to show up for yourself without apology. To stop over-explaining, to stop softening your truth so others feel comfortable, to stop shrinking into roles that no longer fit just because someone else still expects you to wear them. You are not obligated to remain the person someone else remembers. You are not required to carry the weight of others' expectations when it's crushing your own joy. And you are absolutely allowed to reinvent yourself, not just once, but as many times as it takes to become the truest version of you. This is the path of self-empowerment. It's not paved with perfection. It's paved with intention, with choice, with the radical act of listening to your own needs and honoring them, even when the world says you should keep giving more. And it's not just for your benefit. When you begin to live in alignment, you become an example. You model a new way of being, one where self-love and kindness are not opposites, but partners. Where boundaries are not walls, but invitations to deeper connection. Where saying no doesn't close doors, it opens the right ones. So what does it mean practically to live this way? It means waking up and checking in with yourself before checking your messages. It means asking, what do I need today, before asking what everyone else expects? It means saying yes with your whole heart and no with the same clarity. It means protecting your peace like it matters, because it does. It means letting go of relationships that only thrive when you abandon yourself. And it means building a life that's not just full, but full of you. This is not selfishness, it's self-respect, it's soul alignment. It's the deepest form of kindness, because when you are kind to yourself, you expand your capacity to love others in a way that is real, sustainable, and rooted in truth. You stop giving from depletion and start giving from overflow. You stop bending over backwards to keep the peace and start becoming the peace that others feel in your presence. So take a breath, drop the guilt, drop the role, drop the pressure to be endlessly agreeable, and rise into who you really are. The world doesn't need more nice people who say yes out of fear. It needs whole people, authentic, grounded, brave enough to honor themselves. Brave enough to say, this is who I am, this is what I need, and I'm not sorry for it. That's not rebellion, that's liberation, and you deserve nothing less. There comes a moment in everyone's life, a quiet, often uncomfortable moment, when you look in the mirror and ask yourself, why do I feel so tired? And it's not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. It's soul tired. It's the fatigue that comes from carrying the weight of too many expectations, too many obligations, too many unspoken truths. And you begin to realize it's not life that's exhausting you. It's the version of yourself you've been performing to please others. The mask, the smile, the constant, exhausting niceness. That's what's wearing you down. And deep down, you know it. Because being the nice one isn't just a habit, it's an identity that's been shaped over years. It starts small, a forced smile when you're upset, a quiet yes when your whole body is screaming no, a willingness to put yourself last because it feels easier than confronting disappointment. And it builds. Over time, you forget what it feels like to be real, to speak honestly, to take up space without apology. You learn to anticipate other needs before your own, to preempt conflict before it arises, to be agreeable even when it costs you your authenticity. You become the emotional caretaker, the peacemaker, the dependable one. And for a while, it works. People like you, they praise you, they lean on you. But inside, something begins to wither. Because no one sees the real you, not even you. And then one day, you hit a wall. Maybe it's quiet, just a feeling of emptiness that won't go away. Or maybe it's loud, a breakdown, an outburst, a moment when you finally say, I can't do this anymore. That's the turning point, the unraveling. The moment you realize being nice isn't working anymore, not like this, not at the cost of your peace, your voice, your health. And from that place, raw, honest, real, you finally see it clearly. You don't want to be the nice one. You want to be the true one. You want to be whole. That's when the real work begins. And it's not glamorous. It's not quick. It's a slow, deliberate peeling back of every layer you put on to keep others comfortable. It's looking at all the ways you've been abandoning yourself. It's grieving the years you spent silencing your truth for the sake of harmony. And then it's choosing something different. Choosing truth over comfort, integrity over approval, self-respect over convenience. And that's what makes the journey so powerful. Not that you become colder or harder, but that you become clearer, more honest, more aligned. You start to notice the difference between true kindness and performative niceness. Kindness comes from fullness. Niceness often comes from fear. Kindness sets boundaries. Niceness avoids conflict. Kindness is generous without being self-sacrificing. Niceness gives until there's nothing left. And when you start to choose kindness with boundaries, something magical happens. People start to meet the real you. Not the agreeable version, not the mask. You. And yes, some will leave. But others, the right ones, will stay. Because they're not drawn to your compliance, they're drawn to your truth. And maybe for the first time, you'll start to feel what it means to be loved for who you really are. Not for how well you perform, or how much you give, or how little you need. Just for you. And that kind of love, it changes everything. It reminds you that you never needed to twist yourself into knots to be worthy. You were always enough. You just needed to believe it. You just needed to reclaim it. This reclamation, it won't look the same for everyone. For some, it means finally saying no. For others, it means speaking up in a room where you used to stay silent. It might mean walking away from a relationship that only survives when you abandon your needs. Or it might be as simple and as profound as standing in front of the mirror and saying, I matter, my needs matter, my voice matters. These are small acts, but they're radical. They are declarations of worth, of presence, of wholeness. And the more you practice them, the stronger you become. Not in the way the world defines strength as dominance or toughness, but as inner solidity. You become rooted, grounded. You know who you are. And that knowing protects you from the chaos of the world. It keeps you from chasing validation. It keeps you from bending to every opinion, every demand, every expectation. Because you no longer need to be liked by everyone. You just need to be true to yourself. This is the quiet revolution, the gentle, radical act of choosing authenticity over acceptance. It doesn't require shouting or grand gestures. It requires presence, awareness, the courage to pause and ask yourself, what do I really want? What do I really need? And then honor the answer, even if it's inconvenient, even if it disappoints someone, even if it scares you. Because the more you do that, the more you realize that living authentically is not the risk. Pretending is the risk. Performing is the risk. Losing yourself to be liked is the risk. So today, if you feel tired of being the nice one, let this be your invitation. Not to become someone else, but to return to who you were before the world told you to shrink. Before you were praised for being quiet, agreeable, easy to manage. Return to that voice inside, the one that knows your worth, even when you've forgotten it. The one that says you don't have to earn love by giving yourself away. The one that says you deserve rest, respect, and real connection. That voice is still there, and it's waiting for you to listen. And when you do, you'll begin to see how beautiful life becomes when you stop performing and start living. How light you feel when you let go of guilt. How powerful you become when you walk through the world as your whole self. Not for approval, not for applause, but for peace, for alignment, for truth. Because at the end of the day, the most radical thing you can do in a world that asks you to be everything for everyone is to be fully, unapologetically yourself. There is something sacred in the act of returning to yourself, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the quiet decision to finally stop betraying your own heart. That is where real transformation begins. It starts not with grand declarations, but with soft, deliberate choices. The choice to rest instead of overextend. The choice to speak the truth instead of staying silent. The choice to set boundaries, not to push people away, but to protect what matters most. Your peace, your energy, your authenticity. You begin to see that the real cost of being nice all the time isn't rejection from others. It's rejection of yourself. And that cost is too high. That cost is your dreams, your joy, your sense of aliveness. For too long, we've been fed the story that to be good, to be loved, to be enough, we must always be agreeable, always giving, always accommodating. But here's the truth. You are not a machine built to meet others' expectations. You are not a blank slate for others to write their needs on. You are a living, breathing soul with your own path, your own voice, your own rhythm. And the world doesn't need another person who disappears into their roles. The world needs you, whole, grounded, radiant in your truth. When you stop living to earn approval, you begin to live with purpose. You stop saying yes out of fear and start saying yes from freedom. You begin to trust that your value isn't tied to how little you ask for or how much you endure. It's in how fully you show up, for yourself, first and foremost. And ironically, the more you honor yourself, the more you actually have to give, not from depletion, but from overflow. Not out of obligation, but out of alignment. You give without losing yourself because you've stopped making others' comfort more important than your own truth. This is what self-love really looks like. It's not only soft and sweet, sometimes it's fierce. It's the strength to walk away from people who only love the version of you that shrinks. It's the courage to disappoint others if it means being true to yourself. It's the wisdom to know that peace is not found in constant people-pleasing, but in living a life that is deeply yours. A life rooted in clarity. A life that reflects who you are, not who the world told you to be. So what happens when you stop being nice in the way the world expects? You become real. You become honest. You become powerful in the quietest, most unshakable way. And yes, not everyone will like it. Some people might walk away. Some might call you selfish, difficult, ungrateful, but that's not your burden to carry. That's the noise of people who were never truly invested in your wholeness, only in your compliance. Let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Because the people who truly see you, truly love you, won't need you to be small to keep them close. What they'll love is your clarity, your boundaries, your light. They'll meet you in the space where you no longer have to perform, where you no longer have to sacrifice your truth for their comfort. And when you begin to surround yourself with those people, with those relationships, you'll start to heal. Not just from exhaustion, but from the old belief that love must be earned through overextension. You'll start to remember that love, in its truest form, has never asked you to erase yourself. Let that be your compass moving forward. Choose the life that feels light, not heavy. Choose the relationships that energize you, not drain you. Choose the version of yourself that feels whole, not hollow. This is your life, not a performance, not a test. It's a sacred space meant to be lived from your truth. And if you're still learning to let go of the nice mask, that's okay. There's no rush. Start small. Say no when it matters. Rest when you're tired. Speak when something doesn't feel right. The more you do this, the more you'll build the muscle of authenticity. And with time, you'll find yourself living in a state of alignment that no external validation can ever replace. Because true peace doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being honest. With yourself, with others, with life. And once you taste that peace, once you feel the ease of walking through the world without constantly editing yourself, you'll never go back. So here's the final truth. The greatest kindness you can ever offer the world begins with the kindness you offer yourself. That's not selfish, that's sacred. And the moment you start living from that place, not seeking permission, not shrinking, not apologizing, you become free. You become you. And that is more than enough.